welcome back to TAEKOOK Update, the place where we break down every glance, every tiny reaction, every suspicious smile, and every unforgettable moment that leaves the fandom emotionally unstable for days. And this time, we seriously need to talk about what may become one of the most unforgettable TAEKOOK appearances of the year. Because what was supposed to be a fun and simple celebrity interview to global stars sitting side by side, eating painfully spicy wings, laughing, teasing each other, and answering questions somehow turned into one of the wildest, softest, most suspiciously intimate, and most emotionally dangerous TAEKOOK episodes fans have seen in a long time. At first, everyone thought this would be a fairly normal appearance. A little playful teasing, a little awkward laughter, a few iconic lines, and then the episode would end. But what happened instead was so much bigger than that. From the very first few seconds, something already felt different. Not in a bad way, but in a way that immediately made fans nervous. Because Taehyung and Jungkook didn't walk into this episode looking like two idols promoting a project. They looked like two people who were way too familiar with each other, and maybe a little too comfortable forgetting that cameras were rolling. And if you watch the entire episode carefully from beginning to end, one thing became painfully obvious. This was not just an interview. This was a full emotional event. The opening already felt too dangerous for fans. Let's start from the beginning. The second the cameras opened and Taehyung and Jungkook were shown sitting next to each other at the Hot Ones table, the internet basically exploded. And it wasn't just because they both looked unreal on camera. It was because the energy between them was already way too intense from the start. Taehyung sat there, looking suspiciously relaxed, almost too relaxed, like someone who had already decided before filming even began that he was going to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Jungkook looked calm on the surface, but there was something about his expression that gave fans a very specific feeling. It looked like he already knew this episode was going to become difficult because of Taehyung. And almost immediately, fans noticed one very dangerous detail. Taehyung did not come to this show just to participate. He came to create chaos. Even before the first real question was fully underway, his side glances toward Jungkook were already making fans lose their minds. No spicy wings yet. No emotional questions yet. No shocking moment yet. And still, the chemistry was already too strong. Some fans even said they knew within the first 30 seconds that this episode was going to emotionally destroy them for the rest of the week. And honestly, they were right. Their natural dynamic started showing immediately. Usually on shows like this, celebrities take a few minutes to settle in. They stay polite. They answer carefully. They keep a little distance. They stay on. But TAEKOOK? Not this time. The second the first real question came in, their dynamic became incredibly clear. Jungkook answered in his usual calm and thoughtful way. He was composed, soft-spoken, and trying to focus. But every time Jungkook started answering seriously, Taehyung had this habit he absolutely could not hide. He kept looking at Jungkook for way too long. And not just the normal kind of I'm listening eye contact. It was the kind of look that said, I already know what you're about to say. And even more dangerously, there were a few moments where Taehyung seemed to understand exactly what Jungkook meant before Jungkook even fully finished speaking. That was when fans started panicking, because this was no longer just about they're close. This was about something deeper. A level of familiarity and synchronization that's very hard to fake on camera. At one point, Jungkook briefly paused while searching for the right words, and Taehyung casually filled in the meaning behind what he was trying to say. Jungkook immediately reacted like, yeah, that's exactly it. It was such a tiny moment. But for longtime fans, that kind of tiny moment says everything. Because that only happens when two people are used to understanding each other without needing full explanations. And from there, things only got worse for the fandom. The real chaos started when the spice level went up. Now let's talk about the point where the episode truly started becoming dangerous. Because if the first part of the show was already making fans unstable, the moment the wings got hotter, the real chaos began. As everyone knows, Hot Ones isn't just a regular interview. The entire concept of the show is built to slowly break down people's defenses. The hotter the wings get, the harder it becomes to stay polished, composed, and camera-ready. And that is exactly why this format turned out to be way too powerful for Taekook. At first, Jungkook tried to stay strong. He bit into each wing like someone determined not to lose control. He kept trying to answer questions properly. He kept trying to maintain some level of dignity. But after a few increasingly painful sauces, his expression started changing. His breathing got slightly heavier. His eyes widened. His smile became more helpless. And his laugh started sounding like the laugh of someone who was beginning to regret all of his life choices. And then came the moment that immediately destroyed fans. Taehyung started laughing, but not in a mocking way. He laughed in that specific way that looked more like, "You are so adorable right now." They know when to joke, and they also know when to be completely present for each other. Taehyung gave him space, and that kind of quiet attention says more than loud moments ever could. A lot of fans later said that this part of the episode felt like one of the most genuine glimpses of their bond. Not the viral kind, not the edited for clips kind, but something more grounded and emotionally solid. And maybe that's exactly why this episode became so unforgettable. Because the more you watch it, the more those quiet details start to hit. Then Taehyung immediately destroyed the emotional balance again. But of course, if you thought the emotional softness was going to last for too long, then you clearly forgot who Taehyung is. Because the second the atmosphere became a little too serious and heartfelt, he went right back to being a menace. And honestly, fans wouldn't have it any other way. At some point after one of the more emotional answers, Taehyung casually threw in a tiny little comment something that wasn't even objectively dramatic, but the way he said it and the way Jungkook reacted to it made fans absolutely lose it. Jungkook looked at him with that very specific expression that basically said, "Are you serious right now? Why would you say that here? Please don't start." And from that moment on, the entire internet was done. Because one of the most dangerous things about TAEKOOK'S dynamic is that they don't need huge, dramatic moments to create chaos. Sometimes all it takes is one tiny comment, one weirdly knowing smile, one side glance, one reaction that happens too fast to fake. And suddenly the fandom is gone. At some point, the spice stopped being the main event. As the episode continued toward the later rounds, one thing became impossible to ignore. The spicy wings were no longer the main attraction. At some point, the real focus of the episode became entirely about them. Their reactions, their timing, their teasing, their comfort level, their little unspoken language. Even the host at times seemed to naturally give them room to bounce off each other more. And honestly, that makes sense. Because when two people have chemistry this strong, sometimes the most entertaining thing isn't even the questions. It's what happens in the space between the questions. The interruptions. The laughter. The way Jungkook looked down after Taehyung said certain things. The way Taehyung looked genuinely satisfied every time. He successfully made Jungkook flustered. And what made fans scream the most was that none of it looked forced. It flowed. Naturally. Dangerously. Like this was simply what happens when these two are left alone together in a room for too long. And that's exactly why the episode hit so hard. Because they didn't just look close, they looked too comfortable. The kind of comfortable that makes the line between public content and private dynamic start feeling very blurry. And once fans picked up on that, there was no going back.